Welcome to Ronathan Plays and Probes, where I bring you tabletop gameplay, commentary with insights, analysis, and opinions. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. Alrighty, thanks for tuning in. Before we get to the Roll for the North results, I just want to say, hey, we made it to 50 subscribers. Yay! I can't believe we did it. All right. So, in the future, I actually have something special planned for 100. It is actually going to be a little bit of a project and a giveaway. So once I make it to 100 subs, I actually have a giveaway plan that's different than what I think giveaways have been before. I don't know. We'll see. But I have something special lined up for once we get to 100 subs. So keep that in mind, and let's get into this video. All right. So we had the Roll for the North this past weekend. I participated in it. Didn't do great. Finished 16th. I went 2-2-1. So technically didn't have a losing record, but wah. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. Thanks again to the DM North crew up in Canada for putting this on. It was great. It was fantastic. Nothing but positive things to say about the tournament. It was fun whenever we can roll dice with our community, which is just a great collective community as a whole. It's always awesome. So shout out to DM North for putting it on. If you're wondering about the team links or any of the teams that I mentioned below, they will be in the description, as well as the format. We did have Typhoid Mary in this one as opposed to the UKGE. So there will be those differences in the format that I listed below. But what I want to get into is the meta tracker. So I'm going to discuss what happened at the event, just like at the UK Games Expo, just some of the most used cards that I saw from each type in the tournament. Thanks for whoever put that Google Sheet together of all the team breakdowns and what cards were used. It's very helpful for me to sort and go through. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to talk about the most used ramp. Now, we had 30 players that entered in this tournament. We had 28 in the UKG, 27 or 28. We had 30 this time, so it's just great to see the online community continue to thrive. There's actually a few people that I know that couldn't make the tournament, so that would have even been more outstanding if we would have had more than 30, close to 40, just like we did at the big EarthX Origins event. But this was awesome, and so let's go into the most used ramp. So, and when I talk about most used ramp, it's being able to either increase the amount of dice per turn to thin out your sidekicks, or to increase the amount of energy that you have. And shocker, it's no surprise here that the top two was Clayface and the Collector with 12 and with 8, followed by Villainous Pact. And we actually had a tie for Atlas and Atlantis, which Atlas is just like the old Resurrection, and Atlantis allows you to field a sidekick and prep a sidekick. So these are all great meta staples that are in the game, and a lot of teams took advantage of that. All right, our most used control cards. Just like in the UKGE, Spider-Man was at the top of the board. Gazer made a surge up this time. I think last time there's maybe 6 Gazers. This time there was 11 Gazers. I think everyone was just preparing for the amount of God Catchers. Pardon me while I adjust. Something looked off. Oh well, if it continues to look off, that's fine. Anywho, we had Gazers that were used. Those are especially effective for removing control pieces that have your, let's say somebody has a Typhoid Mary out and your key piece is blanked, that can just remove that Typhoid Mary out of the field. So, and when I say control, they are cards that prevent your opponent from doing things like being able to field, use, or attack, like Static Field, removing characters and preventing abilities from happening that do damage, like Black Widow Agent. And Typhoid Mary was not banned, so she was back in this, and which she was the third one at 10. Followed by Black Widow and Drax. So it's nice to see actually 4 cards from the Infinity Gauntlet set that were just key control pieces that were on teams. In some cases, some people ran with 2 of these control cards on their team, which was not a bad idea at all. Next, we got our most used complementary or counter control or support cards. These are cards that help enable you to get to your win con via either discounts, bag managements, or used in conjunction with your win con. Like, for example, like, hey, if I have a really aggressive and attacking team and I don't want my opponent to static field back, I'm going to use that #1 Eddie Guerrero that we got right there. Or to prevent my opponent from using static field to blink my team's back, I will use the #2 one, Nefarious Broadcast. And of course, when you're running Becky Lynch, you're definitely, or Danny Moonstar, you're going to be running that Booker T announcer, which topped in at 6, followed by, to support that win con, hey, how do you get that God Catcher out there? Well, you're probably going to run an Eddie Guerrero and Nefarious Broadcast, maybe along with the Under Surveillance, just to push that unblockable damage through. All right. Now we go into the most used win cons, and this is the part that I actually really want to talk to you about. Okay, so our most used win cons that we had was, no shocker here, was the God Catcher, Becky Lynch, and Thor. Now we had a total of 13 God Catchers. One person used the 2-cost God Catcher. We had a total of 13 Becky Lynches. 2 people used the Straight Fire, which is just the 4-cost Overcrush one. And then we had a total of 12 Thors. Somebody used the Thor from the Avengers Infinity, or is it the Avengers Infinity campaign box that allows you to just basically have that global, the bulk global, to discount your next action dice. So, and then the 4th win con that we saw the most was Danny Moonstar. Now, looking at this, basically, we had 30 participants. And if we were to total this up, 13 plus 13 plus 12, you get 26, plus 12 is 38. So guess what? Of these win cons, you had 38 total that were on teams, and there were only 30 teams that were submitted. So guess what? In this meta, you're actually going to be running 1 or 2 of these, probably at least 2, so you can pivot. And how I feel about that, I'm going to talk to you about later. But let's look at the rest of the field win cons that we have out there. So the top ones that I have up here is Moon Knight, Orbital Strike, and Doctor Strange. Now, it was a different Doctor Strange other than the one listed, but nonetheless, we had 2 Doctor Stranges. So it was a total of 6 teams that ran these alternate win cons, in which you're using Moon Knight for Captain Marvel, or using to copy Captain Marvel, so that way you can just reroll all of your opponent's stuff, or using Moon Knight to copy one of She-Hulk's things, which She-Hulk is an amazing character, which hopefully somebody can tech and figure out how to make her more meta competitive. That would be awesome. But some of the other things that we saw these 6 other win cons down here at the bottom, which I thought we would see a lot more variety. And so to me, I kind of didn't like that we didn't have more variety. I was hoping to see a little bit more Angelas. I definitely thought we were going to see some Dreadnoughts, but considering, like, hey, how fast you have to play, you're not going to be able to build up your field that quickly. As well as we had a Poison Ivy. Green Lantern's always lurking there. And surprising, I didn't see any Iceman or Hope teams. So that was a bit of a shocker, that I thought somebody might tech against all those and run an Iceman or a Hope team, but nobody was able to get it. So now going into our top 3. Once again, everyone played this excellent. DM Armada actually had a video this morning breaking down the top 12 teams and what was featured on it. So I'll go ahead and link his video in here as well so you can see it. But I just really want to go over quickly, not the guts and details, because he broke that down. I just want to go over a couple pieces. So we have the winner, Ben Scott. Played against him in the last tournament. Boy, is that tough. And yeah, and he piloted this excellently throughout the tournament. And he ran his Becky Danny team. So those were his 2 win cons. If you look at the top 3, they all had at least 2 win cons on their team. And yes, I am counting Danny Moonstar as a win con, because that ability to basically re-roll, it's not only a great control piece, but it also does damage that just starts adding up, where she can, if you can get as many, whatchamacallit out there, as many shields to force blockers to have them be re-rolled. They go to the use pile and they're just dealt 2 damage each because of that. It's just strong and huge. So she is definitely a win con. In second place, we got James from the DM United group. He ran his Thor and Godcatcher team. And then in third, we had Elliot, who ran Godcatcher, Danny, and Becky on this team, which kind of in my testing phase, I was like, do I put all three? Like, do I put 3 win cons on the team? And it was great to see that, hey, somebody, it was interesting to see that somebody did it. Now, the other thing I want to look at too, I don't have it listed up here, but the rest of the top 8. So if we look at the rest of the top 8, the rest of the top 8, which is just 5 other teams, had 3 Thors, 3 Beckys, and 4 Godcatchers. So 3 plus 3 is 6 plus 10. So we had 5 teams that had 10 win cons. Needless to say, guess what? You are running 2 of these win cons on this team. So what does this mean for the meta? And that's actually what I want to talk to you about. Honestly, I feel like this meta it's not like rock, paper, scissors. I think because it's not like this beats that or this beats that. I feel if we're going to do an analogy, it's going to be NASCAR. I'm not really a NASCAR watcher. All I know is just from my time from watching Talladega Nights and Days of Thunder. But essentially, it's hey, in NASCAR, you're running the same type of stock car. Okay, everybody has the same rule. They have to run this type of car. But what you're allowed to do with it, with maybe just tweaking certain things, i.e., we're going to tweak Becky, Thor, and Godcatcher and moving these parts around. All you're really just doing in this meta is just fine-tuning little pieces. And I don't have too much of a problem because at least we got 3 pieces to move around. But I feel that this game could benefit a little bit more if it weren't like NASCAR. So instead, this would be great if this game were exactly like maybe like IndyCar, as to where, hey, you can design your drivers or not IndyCar, maybe Formula One, same thing. I don't know the subtle differences, but like Formula One, as to where like each team is responsible for designing their own car. And yes, they have certain restrictions, like we have the card restrictions that we can allow, but it just for the concept of like Formula One cars, it's just like, hey, we're just designing a car from ground up. It's not like, hey, you have to put one of these 3 pieces in to be competitive, which is something that after the DM North crew did their post tournament show, I think it was Jocelyn that mentioned that what she really likes about Dice Masters is that the whole back and forth exchange that happens. And I really feel that, hey, we need to get back to that. So how do we get back to that back and forth exchange? Well, is it just straight banning those cards, Godcatcher, Thor, and Becky? I don't know if it's necessarily banning those. However, though, there may be 2 solutions on the horizon. One, maybe it's just to ban the enablers like Clayface, that just allow you to get to that allows you to get to whatchamacallit. I can't even think. That allow you to get to Becky and Thor a lot quicker, especially when your opponent has Clayface as well too. So now we just have double Clayfaces. So I kind of feel that that's the enabler, along with the collector, which just, hey, you pay a mask and feel the sidekick, not only on your turn but your opponent's turn, which allows Thor, you just get to ping off 2 damage. In case where it went up against General Nemesis, he just played it just the right way, where he just fielded his sidekick, knocked out one of my pieces that I fielded that turn, just so he can set up his win con for the next turn. So I mean, it's beautifully played. I don't have any qualms or about like how I lost. Hey, all the teams piloted their brews very well, so nothing about that. As well as so going back to the banning the enablers, let's just go out there and ban Booker T, Jerry Lawler, and Under Surveillance. I feel that maybe those are just the big enablers that just allow those big pieces just to go out faster, and where you just can't just see them out of nowhere and there's not enough time to set up against them. So maybe that would allow for a little bit more back and forth, or we can push for this restricted list, which is kind of something I've been championing. Oh my gosh, man, meetings throughout the whole day have just kind of thrown me off. So maybe we go with this restricted list where, yes, all these cards are on this restricted list, as well as Becky, Thor, and Godcatcher. I think it would definitely be a lot tougher to win if you can't have these two, have one of these two main win cons on your team, as well as maybe a couple other cards that would enable them as well too. But maybe that's just something that we start. I don't know if I'm gonna push for that, but it's just interesting to see, like, hey, there's nothing like wrong with like our game as far as like it's in the toilet or it's in the tank. I just feel we're at a crossroads as to where, like, hey, are we like NASCAR building teams where it's just, hey, you have to have one of these main parts and you're just putting pieces around it, or are we going to be able to design teams from the ground up and run them as we see fit to suit our play style, rather than just be this one particular play style that we're locked into? So just further discussions, which it was nice just to see the community afterwards, which goes into the next thing I'm talking about. Afterwards on the Roll for the North Discord particular channel, they were talking about the tournament rules and the time restrictions. Some people had a problem with it. I mean, we all knew it going into it. Hey, this is what was going to be the format. I do feel that, hey, that we could have some improvements on just like tournament structure, especially for online play. I think in person, it's a lot easier. You have a little bit more flexibility, but considering you're coordinating all around the world, I think that's tougher. And so I think really just trying to figure out these like time formats and how it would work would be a lot better. One of the things that I feel that should be a difference is that, hey, a full victory should count more, or at least count double, than a life total victory. So we could do it either two ways, as to where, like, hey, only life total victories count if there's a tie between you and your opponent, if you're 1-1 or 0-0, and then that just determines who wins the match. Or if we wanted to do a system as to where, like, hey, a full KO, you take your opponent's life down just 20 points, that's worth 2 points, and maybe the life total victory is worth 1 point, so that way that can balance out standings later on. Who knows? So that way ties maybe have a little bit more value. The other thing that I want to mention is that I think there's one improvement that I think that we can do, and that's ending when time ends. That maybe when time ends, that we do count players' total turns, whether we end on that turn or we end on the next turn. And what I'm talking about specifically is that, hey, if you have a player that goes second and it ends on the first player's, the timer ends on the first player's turn who went first, essentially they got an extra turn. So kind of like baseball, I want to ensure that, hey, that both teams actually have a fair amount of turns afterwards. So whether we go turns 0 through 1, 0 through 3, or 0 through 5, meaning that always the team who goes second always gets the last finish. I think that that would be a little bit more fair to everybody going forward, or at least just an understanding that, hey, you know, like, it's not always just about like going first. Like, you now have the option to go first, set up your win con quick, maybe a little quicker than your opponent, but you would at least be guaranteed that final turn if your life total is not already brought down. The other thing that they were mentioning in that Discord channel was maybe having a global timer that would be in view for everybody. So that way both players just can see how the time is shaking out. Because I know at times I'm like, what? How many minutes are left? And, you know, as I was playing, I always try to be like a good, like, oh, hey, by the way, we have X amount of minutes left, that type of thing, because I think it's just communication that is important. And maybe if that tool is already out there, that timer's out there, we know. I think we have a good community that's not going to like intentionally try to stall. But if that were the case, we also could have the option of maybe, this may be a little out there, I don't know how this would work, but maybe just global timers out there where we have 2 timers where if we go to turns, like, hey, basically you each would have like 2 minutes to complete your 3 turns, in which at some point you pass your priority over to your opponents. Your timer starts and their timer starts. I don't know how complicated that would be, a la the chess timer, but I think that these are just positive discussions that we are having in the community that we can go forward with. Other than that, I just want to say that I had a lot of fun. Thanks again, DM North, for putting on this tournament. The last thing that I would want to leave you with is that, I was just on the Rolling Thunder XYZ podcast, and that'll be coming out, I think, end of this week or next week, whenever they drop it. I think they do it every 2 weeks. So keep an eye out. Thanks again, Arj, for putting me on for the Rolling Thunder broadcast. And thanks again to the DM North crew and all you viewers. And keep aware. Spread my channel a little bit, give me a little love, and we can get to a 100 subscriber giveaway, in which hopefully this will be different or kind of something that you're not used to with giveaways. Alrighty, thanks, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.